Tonight we are looking at 3 horrifying caving stories that went horribly wrong. Every light dies at once. A kilometer inside Cheve, one of the deepest caves in the Americas. 3 meters of flooded passage in the deepest cave in Britain. And a swimmer who thinks 10 seconds will do it. And a broken guideline reaches for a diver in zero visibility, deep inside Cocklebiddy, one of the longest underwater caves on Earth. Each story starts with confidence and ends in chaos. As always, viewer discretion is advised. On April 2nd, 2026, Elias Boone shouldered a resupply pack into the cold underground river country of Cheve Cave in Mexico, one of the deepest cave systems in the Americas. A mountain drain so vast that expeditions live in camps below ground for weeks to reach its far ends. Cavers speak of Cheve the way sailors speak of oceans. In legs, not distances. His leg that day was the middle one, Camp 2 to Camp 3, alone, a route he could almost walk in his sleep. Almost is the word this story is about. Elias was 47 years old, a quartermaster caver who had logged 20 expeditions hauling supplies through the world's deep systems. The man teams trusted precisely because nothing interesting ever happened to him. He carried 3 lights, like everyone. He also carried a habit the young ones teased. At every junction, he stopped and touched the wall for 10 seconds, memorizing it with his hand. Here is what you need to understand about total darkness underground. It is not the absence of light, it is the absence of direction. In it, a fit caver in familiar passage becomes a man swimming in ink, and every step taken is a bet placed blind. Expedition doctrine prices it flatly. If every light goes out between camps in a system like Cheve, you sit down where you stand, because the search grid for a moving man doubles every hour, and a battery pack has never once been improved by walking. The leg ran normally for 3 hours. The river passage, the boulder gardens, the rope traverses above black water, his primary lamp cutting the way and the pack's 40 kilos riding quiet. At the halfway junction he stopped, touched the wall for his 10 seconds like always, and clipped into the traverse line for the last dry canyon before Camp 3. At the canyon lip, that is the moment his world shrank to a sound, a soft pop from his helmet, and the primary lamp browned out from white to amber to nothing in the space of one breath. The lamp had not failed alone, because water had been wicking down the cable into the battery case all day from a drip he never felt. What he didn't know, reaching calmly for backup 1, the same water had pooled in the pack pocket where both spares lived, and that light would be his last for 11 hours. All 3 had drunk from the same drip. Backup 1 flared and died in his hand. Backup 2 never lit at all. The dark arrived whole. Panic knocked at full volume. Nobody opened. Elias stood exactly still on the canyon lip, one fist closed around the traverse line, and did the bravest thing the doctrine knows: absolutely nothing. And this is the part that decides everything in total darkness. The first 10 steps are the fatal ones. The caver who moves rewrites his own position from known to unknown, and rescue doctrine cannot search an unknown. Watch the ledger in the ink. 1 man at a known junction, on a known schedule, due at Camp 3 in 2 hours. A camp that would call the overdue at hour 4 and reach him by hour 9 at the earliest. And a canyon lip 1 step to his left that the darkness had erased as completely as the route home. He worked by hand and by count. 3 steps back from the lip along the traverse line, palm reading the wall he had memorized at 100 junctions, until his fingers found the alcove he knew was there. He sat on the pack, wrapped himself in the Camp 3 sleeping bag he happened to be hauling, and ate cold beans from the resupply. Then he began the long arithmetic of waiting, counting to 60, folding a finger, 10 fingers to a notch on the strap, 6 notches to an hour. The dark played its games on schedule. By the strap it started 6 hours in. Lights that were not there bloomed and drifted. Voices that were not there said his name. He answered each one out loud, politely, with the hour count, because a man reciting numbers cannot also be listening to the dark. At what his strap called hour 11, the voices were real. He did not believe them until the first glow arrived on the canyon wall like sunrise, and 2 headlamps came down the traverse talking his name. The Camp 3 pair found him wrapped, warm, 40 meters from where his light had died, with the resupply intact and the hour count off by only 40 minutes. The younger one wept. Elias asked, in the flat voice of the long dark, whether they had brought a spare lamp, because he had beans to deliver. He was rescued, unhurt, after 11 hours in absolute darkness, and the report ruled the triple failure a single cause: 1 drip, 1 shared pocket, and the survival a masterclass. It printed in full. He stopped, he sheltered, he counted, and he never once bet a step he could not see. Cheve expeditions changed one rule that season, on the report's last line. Spare lights live in separate pockets, on separate sides, forever. Elias still hauls the middle leg, 21 expeditions and counting, and the young ones do not tease the wall touching anymore. One of the deepest caves in the Americas is dark in a way the surface never is, he tells them at Camp 2. And the dark only wins against a man who moves. Sit down, count your fingers, and make it wait with you. On February 21st, 2026, Gareth Llewellyn walked into the cold streamway country of Ogof Ffynnon in Wales, the deepest cave in Britain, 30 miles of passage under one green hillside, a labyrinth so loved that 3 generations of club cavers call it simply OFD. The name means Cave of the Black Spring. The spring earns the adjective after rain. He went in with 2 clubmates for a classic through trip, on a forecast that said the rain would hold off until dark. Gareth was 31 years old, a wiry club caver who had logged 9 years of Welsh weekends underground, strong in water and proud of it. A former county swimmer who held the informal club record for the entrance lake. His fiancée had a rule about his hobby she repeated every Sunday morning: come back boring. Here is what you need to understand about a flooded duck. It is a lie with a known length. A duck is a dip in the roof where water meets rock, and in dry weather you tilt your head, keep your lips in the airspace, and slide through. After rain, the airspace goes, and the duck becomes a free dive. 3 meters, the survey says. But a flooded duck is never the 3 meters on paper. It is brown water, no light past your face, a roof of rock, and a current with its own opinion about which way you are going. The trip in was the classic it always is. The great streamway galleries, the cascades booming down a giant staircase, water level low and friendly, 3 cavers moving quick and loud the way old friends do. They turned for home at the halfway sump on schedule, 4 hours in, with the exit duck between them and the entrance series. A puddle on the way in that morning, ankle deep under a hand of airspace. At the duck, that is the moment the forecast mattered, because the rain had not held off until dark, and the dip in the roof now sat brimmed to the rock, brown and moving, with no airspace at all. The safe play had not failed, it simply cost hours. The high-level bypass route, long and dry and guaranteed, or a cold wait for the water to drop. What they didn't know, watching Gareth study the brown water, the county swimmer had already decided. And that choice would be 3 meters long on the survey, and the rest of his life in the water. He said it would take 10 seconds, clipped his helmet to the rope, breathed up like a swimmer, and went under mid-sentence. The water closed. His light vanished. Panic stayed on the bank. It counted seconds. The 2 clubmates stood in the lamplight staring at brown water that had just swallowed their friend. Because this is the physics of a flooded duck. The current that brims it also owns it. 3 meters of survey becomes 5 of water. The roof has no gaps it did not have yesterday, and a swimmer's strength means nothing against a ceiling. Watch the count on the bank. 10 seconds, the promise. 20, still credible for a county swimmer. At 40 seconds, one clubmate was stripping his oversuit to follow, and the other was physically holding him, because the second law of ducks is crueler than the first. The water that keeps one man keeps 2. They did the only right things left. One stayed at the duck, shouting into the water gap on a count, lamp buried to the glass in the brown gurgle of the current. The other ran the high-level bypass alone, the long, dry route Gareth had voted against. 2 hours of scrambling compressed into 50 frantic minutes to reach the far side of a 3-meter lie. He found Gareth's helmet first, drifted into an eddy, lamp still burning under a hand of water. Then he found Gareth, 4 meters past the duck on the exit side, face down in the slack pool where the current opens, through and not through. The clubmate pulled him out and did everything the training says for 11 minutes, alone, in lamplight, while the duck between him and his shouting friend held its brown line. The cave rescue came in through the entrance series in force that night, 20 of them, with a doctor, and brought Gareth Llewellyn out of OFD on a stretcher at 2 in the morning, past the lake whose record he still holds. He had drowned within a body's length of making it, the current pinning him through the final meter, and no strength in Wales would have changed the arithmetic. Gareth Llewellyn died at the exit side of a duck he had crossed dry 100 times, 3 weeks before his wedding. The inquest ruled freediving a flooded duck against club standard, and the coroner's report put the whole lesson in one line the clubs now print on the survey itself. The bypass costs 2 hours. The duck, after rain, is not a route. It is a coin flip with a ceiling. The deepest cave in Britain still runs the classic through trip every weekend, and at the duck there is a small brass plate now, screwed to the bypass signpost where every caver's lamp must cross it. GL, take the long way. His fiancée asked the club for one thing, and they gave it to her. The entrance lake record stands closed, in his name, forever. The fast swimmer remembered at last for the 2 hours he should have gone slow. True. On May 9th, 2026, Sina Keller carried her tanks down a dusty doline in the middle of the Nullarbor Plain in Australia and slipped into the cold blue water of Cocklebiddy, one of the longest underwater caves on Earth. 6 kilometers of flooded tunnel under a desert that gets rain about as often as it gets visitors. The nearest town is a roadhouse. The nearest chamber is a day away. She dived in as part of a 3-person survey team, second in line, breathing easy off a freshly serviced regulator, with the oldest job in cave diving: mind the thread. Sina was 33 years old, a technical diver who had logged 500 cave dives across 3 continents, and her club knew her for one obsessive ritual. Every reel she owned was rewound by hand before every trip. 20 minutes of tension checked meter by meter. "Line is life," she wrote inside every logbook cover. "Everything else is luggage. Here is what you need to understand about guideline in a long cave. The thread is not a suggestion. It is the cave's only exit, rendered in 6 kilometers of nylon. But old line ages down there. Floods move it, rock wears it, and a loose end drifts in the water column like a stray thread, riding at exactly diver height. The wrap is the quiet one. No alarm, no sound at all, just a tug at your gear from behind, in a place where turning around to look costs the visibility you would need to see. The dive ran beautifully for 1 full hour. The great blue tunnel of Cocklebiddy rolling past, scooters humming, the survey stations falling behind them, one silver tag at a time. At the rock pile before the first chamber, they parked the scooters and finned the shallow gallery. Sina trailing last through a cloud the lead diver's fins had lifted. One hand on the fat main line, 150 bar, and all of it on plan. In the silt cloud, that is the moment the cave reached for her. A soft tug at the back of her head, then another at her shoulder, like a passenger tapping politely. An old survey line had already failed some flood season ago, because floods drag aging nylon until it parts, and its drifting end had found her manifold and wrapped it as she swam. What she didn't know yet, easing to a stop in the brown, she was tethered to the cave by 10 meters of aging nylon. And that habit would now earn back its decade of teasing, the reels rewound by hand. She pulled forward and the cave pulled back. The line held her. The silt closed her lamp. Panic tapped with it. Nobody home. Her right hand stayed on the main line, and her left went back over her shoulder, reading the snare by touch like Braille. Because this is the entanglement drill, and it has one commandment: do not spin. The diver who turns to look wraps the line once around everything she owns and turns a tap on the shoulder into a net. Watch her position in the brown. Zero visibility, one hand budgeted to the main line and one to the problem. Two teammates 90 seconds ahead in the cloud, unaware, their fins still feeding it. And 140 bar of margin that stayed a margin only as long as her breathing stayed a survey dive's and not a snare's. She worked it like she wound her reels, by feel, by meters, without hurry, her exhaust crackling softly against the ceiling above. Two fingers traced the old line off her manifold to its wrap, found the lay of it, and walked it backward one loop at a time. The last loop sat under her tank valve, snug where her own exhaust had washed it. She unclipped nothing, spun never, and shaved it free with the line cutter from her harness. One stroke, the nylon parting with a snap she felt rather than heard. Then she did the part the drill grades hardest. She coiled the dead line as she backed out of the cloud, all 10 meters of it, and clipped the coil to a rock, because a snare you leave armed is a snare you have set for the next diver. Her teammates found her at the rock pile 2 minutes later, coil in hand, and read the whole story from it the way divers do. Wide eyes, slow okay, and a long look at the brown gallery behind her. Sina Keller surfaced in the desert Dolene on schedule to the minute, with 90 bar in reserve, one dead snare in her pocket, and a survey log missing exactly one station, the one the cave had tried to keep. She survived on a drill and a habit, and the debrief report gave the save 2 lines before spending a page on the housekeeping. 7 more broken line ends flagged and stripped from the first kilometer that season by teams carrying her coil as the example. The old line had failed years ago. The system for finding it had just been born. Sina still rewinds every reel by hand before every trip, and nobody teases her anymore. Half her club now spends the same 20 minutes beside her on the tailgate. One of the longest underwater caves on Earth holds 6 kilometers of thread in the dark, she tells the new survey divers at the roadhouse, with the debrief report taped inside the logbook she survived to write. And the thread is only ever one of 2 things: your way home or somebody's forgotten snare. 10 meters of it once tried to keep her. Wind your reels. Know the difference by touch.